Hi, everyone. It's Joan Norton. I want to thank those of you that came to my client event on Sunday the 15th. We had a great time. Everyone enjoyed themselves. And I just wanted to review some of the things that we talked about. I know there was dinner and a show and what have you, but we did talk about some business things. And I just wanted to review some of those, so I put them in a slide presentation for you. And again, you can always freeze frame any of these whenever you want. You can see where the sources come from, etc. But those of you that didn't attend, we're shortly going to be sending out pictures of some of the people that did attend there and some of the goings-on, so you'll be seeing those shortly. But anyway, I wanted to get back concerning the meat of the subject, if you will, which is, geez, what's going on? The market's up and down, and right this second it happens to be up, but, you know, anything could happen in North Korea. Okay, and I had this sign up when people came up. Bankruptcy, next exit, okay, 1A. Now, why did I do that? The reason is because there's been a lot of talk about bankruptcy, okay, concerning municipal bonds, those of you that are in municipal bonds. And it's surely the end of the world, and we surely have never seen anything like this before. And here we are. Everyone agrees with this. We have a faltering national economy, huge budget gaps. Everyone knows that. Unemployment, awful. Homeless. Wall Street losses, threat of massive layoffs and service cuts. You all know that. Sound familiar? I know, and you all think that it's Detroit. Well, guess what? It was New York City, and the time was 1975. I feel like I'm Edward R. Murrow in reporting from, England. Anyway, New York City, 1975. See, things don't necessarily exactly the same, but they rhyme. And the city of New York, you've heard of it, was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, just like Detroit is now. And many of you remember, or some of you studied it in history, Gerald Ford was the President of the United States. And again, he was a stand-up guy. And he said to the city of New York, drop dead. Can you believe this? He said he would veto any bailout. We are not going to bail out New York City. First off, they have the Yankees, and who cares about them, right? Just because they're a big city, big deal, okay? So we are not going to bail them out. The city bonds, though, did turn out to be a good investment. And the reason is, guess what? We did bail out New York City. Okay, the federal government did. Now, that does not mean that they will bail out Detroit. But those of you that haven't listened to my prior webcast about muni bonds, remember, Detroit had 2 million people in it. It now has 700,000. It's considered the murder capital of the world. So maybe it might be a good idea to put troops in there instead of in Syria, but I'm not a politician, as you know. Anyway, things are in bad shape, but let's just review that. They were commitments made to people that are now retired, people that were police officers, people that were firemen, people that were teachers. And they promised, the city promised, Detroit, they were going to pay a certain amount of money for pensions. They are not, I believe, this is my opinion, they are not going to go to those individuals that retired and say, hey, guess what? We can't, pay your full pension. We're going to have to ask for a cutback because we don't have enough people to go around. The person that's going to suffer is the city employee that's now working. But I just don't see, in my crystal ball, the city of Detroit going to the pensioners and saying, we're going to have to cut your pension. And I might add, this is a municipality. It's not a corporation. We know that Polaroid had to ask their employees to take a pension cut, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a city. Like New York, this time the city is Detroit. And again, New York, the edge of bankruptcy, right? You can read this. No state had ever gone bankrupt. And this is interesting. You can see how far we've come from 1975. President Ford, yes, he was the President of the United States, wanted to make New York an example to the rest of the country. And they compared the city of New York to a wayward daughter, not a son, wayward daughter, hooked on heroin. You don't give her $100 a day to support her habit. Unbelievable that that was the news headline and that's what was said. But it was. And again, you already know that, guess what? The federal government did bail out New York City. And in fact, the bonds were very good. Of course, they were backed by the federal government. The returns were good, what have you. But past performance is not necessarily what's going to happen in the future. All I can talk about is the past and looking forward. That's all I can talk about. I can't tell you what the megabucks number is, although I'd like to, but I can't because I don't know what it is. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know what's happened in the past. Now, here's a slide. It happens to be Franklin Templeton insured income. And the reason, this is nationwide. This is not the Mass Muni, which a lot of you are in. But this is nationwide because I wanted you to see what the effect was when Detroit declared that, there was bankruptcy there. Now, again, we can look at this chart, and I will be saying this again in the next slide. But all investments are risky, okay? Even ones that you invest in U.S. government securities or agency bonds. Because remember, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they had some problems a couple of years ago, and they need to be bailed out by the federal government. Prices are going to fluctuate in muni bonds, okay? You can see the effect way over on the right-hand side, the effect, that little dip that we see beyond 2010, sort of towards 2013 on the right. You can see the dip that it took when Detroit declared bankruptcy. The other thing about bonds is when interest rates go up, bond per share prices go down. Why? Let me give you an example. Let's say you had a bond that was paying 1%. And it definitely will pay 1%. There's no question. But now the feds or the state issues a bond that's going to pay 2%. Which one are you, the buyer, going to buy? You're going to buy the 2% bond, obviously. So what happens is if people need the liquidity, those people that own the 1% bond, what they do is they have to sell it as a discount, which means, let's say you bought it for $1,000 for that one bond. It's not going to be $1,000 you're going to get. You're going to have to sell it, and it's at a reduced rate. You're still going to get the 1%, but if you wanted the liquidity, you're going to have to cut your price because, in my example, the bond just bought today for $1,000 is going to return 2%. Now, funds are not insured by any U.S. or government agencies, and again, they're subject to fluctuation. You can see that in this chart. There's a minimum investment of $1,000 in these muni bond funds. And again, I happen to show Franklin Templeton, but we also offer Eaton Vance, and Fidelity has muni bonds. And then, of course, this is nationwide, but those of you in Massachusetts, the better situation is to have double tax-free, no state, no federal. If you just have a federal muni bond like we're looking at right here, there's no federal income tax, but there would be a state. And again, you need to sit down with me to see whether or not a muni bond would be appropriate for you. Please look at the next slide. Okay, and this basically is what I already said. And again, you can flip back to the previous slide. You can show how there was fluctuations. But when I meet with you, you can see there is some fluctuations in muni bonds when the Fed does something like raise the interest rates. Again, makes the muni bond not as valuable that you already have. But eventually, what's happened in the past, things have settled out and people have made money. Doesn't mean you're going to in the future, but that's what's happened in the past. Now, with Massachusetts, there's been some talk by Duval Patrick, our governor, that they're talking about increasing the state income tax from 5.3 to 6.3, 1%, and then dropping the sales tax to 1% to try to get more people to buy in the large items in the state of Massachusetts instead of going to New Hampshire. But let's just think a minute now. If that happens, do you think more people would be interested in Massachusetts tax-free bonds? Because I don't want to pay that additional 1%. Usually that's the case, and demand increases whenever you see a tax increase. Tax-free become more valuable in people's eyes. Okay? Again, we don't know. I can talk endlessly about the past. I can show you what the fund companies think is going to happen. But again, what Mr. Bernanke is going to do and what Congress is going to do, anyone's guess. Okay? So I just wanted to let you know that. If you're looking at a longer term horizon, not money market money now, but you're looking 3, 5, or longer years, it's certainly worthwhile to take a look at, again, depending upon what your tax bracket is. Okay? And here's, this wonderful chat. So this happens to be, let's see, what date do we have on here? 9/10, okay? And right now, obviously, you saw the beginning. This was done on 9/20. Things are up from where they were. Look way over to the right-hand side, okay? You see 13 on the bottom, way over to the right. You're going to see the market was up, and then it took a little downturn. It was up around 15.5, as you can see, for 2013. And then, geez, we saw this little downturn. That was when we were trying to decide whether or not we were going to go to war with Syria. So anytime you have things like that going on, you're obviously going to see fluctuations in the market. Now, again, this is my favorite part of the slide. Let's look at '09. Okay? You remember '09. Turns out all the banks didn't have any money, and, there was TAP, and, all of that. Everyone got a bailout. General Motors and Ford flew in, and Chrysler flew in on corporate jets, private ones, different, all different. They couldn't share a jet, and asked Congress, which means you, for money. You remember that. Anyway, that's TAP. That's what we're looking at right here. We're looking at '09, okay? And we're looking at that situation of there was the bailout starting about the beginning of '08, what have you. We had a huge run-up from '07 to '08. Okay, this is right about the middle of your screen. You can see that mountain chart. And that's when basically anyone could purchase a home. Didn't matter. You could fog a mirror and you could purchase a home. The bank brokers were talking you into higher home prices because, again, they made a better commission on it. It wasn't your old bank anymore. It wasn't your daddy's bank. We basically had to be stripped naked to prove that you could afford the monthly payments. Here, you were encouraged to take out more of a loan than you need. And those of you that haven't done that, talk to younger people that did that. They, again, should have known better, but if you have a bank telling you can afford more, again, the tendency is to listen. But that was a bad tendency. And it turned out, again, it was all smoke and mirrors. And you can see what happened from '08 to '09. You see that drop, like a very bad downhill ski slope. And then the media, because I guess the Kardashians were busy doing regular things, the media was very busy. In '09, you can see the market was around 6,000. So it had gone from a high of 14 to a low of 6. Now again, freeze frame this in case I'm going too quickly so you can see that. The media said that it will take decades for us to go back to 14,000. And as a matter of fact, some news stations said the market was going to go to 2,000. So this is like yelling fire in a crowded room. And people believed it. But let's see if it did take decades. Let's see. We're talking about the beginning of '09, and the market went back up to 14 in 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So I guess where I went to school, decades is really 4 years. It's not 10 or 20. I mean, we were always told that, but who knows? Things change. I'm being facetious. In 4 years, with the worst possible media coverage, they couldn't say enough bad things. Again, the market was back to 14. And in fact, it went up to 15. And it flirted with 15. It's now up over 15 because we're talking about the 20th of September. That's because Mr. Bernanke said, I'm not going to raise the rates. I'm not going to do anything right now. And it appears, at least at this date, we're not going to go to war with Syria. Now, if we're going to go to war with somebody, usually the market does go down, and you can see that, as I said, when there was talk way over to the right-hand side. So what does this all say? And I'm going to leave this slide up for a minute. You are an investor. You are not a speculator. If you are and you're my client, you're in the wrong place. Go speculate someplace. Things go up and down. Even gold goes up and down. And we know what happens with speculation. Even if you said, geez, I don't understand the market. If we've got a problem in the Mideast, what happens overnight? All of a sudden, the gas prices go up. Now, it's interesting because that gas price that's going up, they have that fuel already in the tanks underneath the gas station. So why is it going up? Because it's being fueled by speculation. That's what happens. You're not speculators. You're investors. And what I try to do is to have you focus on the dividend, because on this particular slide, many of you that I've met with, and again, I want to meet with people that I haven't seen in the last 8 years, the last 8 months, 8 years, God, the last 8 months, call my office to set up an appointment. Those of you that might be looking at this, that attended the dinner, and you'd like to sit down and talk to me about what you're doing now, what you might do, and geez, am I on the right course? Focus on this. Give my office a call. Thank you very much for attending with your friends and family. But again, where did people make money? They didn't make money when the market was at 14. They didn't make money when the market's at 15. They made money with dividends in 09, 10, 11, and 12, and part of a little bit into 13. That's when they made money. Because again, you were getting dividends. Let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say you've got a dividend coming to you that's $100. And let's say the price per share is high, like it is right now, for instance. And let's say the price per share in this hypothetical example is $25 a share. Now you're getting $100 for a dividend. So that means if it's $25 a share, you're going to get 4 shares. Well, that's good. I've got $100. But how did you fare, let's say, in a bad period like 09 or 10? The share price isn't $25 a share. Now it's $10 a share. You're still getting that $100 dividend. But now you're getting 10 shares. And you can see if you got 10 shares on what we're looking at on this chart, they grew up to become $25 a share. So you were getting 10 shares, $10 a share, and now all of a sudden they're higher. People make money when the market's down. I know we're talking about the 20th, but as investors, the best thing that could happen to you right now, in my opinion, is if the market stumbles a little, so the price per shares are down a little bit, so you can get more shares the end of September. Many of you are clients that are getting dividends either monthly or quarterly or what have you. So that would be a good thing. But again, money is made when the market goes down. Now, definitely you need to rebalance. You can't have it all in one area. You need to rebalance. But you need to invest. So basically things are moving maybe sideways a little, but basically they're moving forward. Okay? So I want to thank those of you that came to the event. It was a lot of fun. It was at Florian Hall. We're already busily planning next year, and we never do anything the same. So next year is going to be totally different theme, etc., different location as well. But I want to thank you, and those of you that did have family or friends come and they said, gee, that was good or what have you. If you recall, one of the things that I did is I said, how many people here are clients? And people raised their hands. And then I said, those of you that haven't raised your hands, you're guests. You're either family, friends, whatever. Please talk to the people with the raised hands. They're my clients. Find out, do I meet with them on a regular basis? we talk about what's going on with their family and how the market is going to affect that, what the goals are, the financial plans? Yes, I do. But again, I can say I do. Why don't you check with them to see, in fact, if that's really what I do? Okay? So I really appreciate you listening to this. Please check out the other webcast I had. Hopefully those of you that didn't attend this year can attend next year. We're not exactly sure when it's going to be, but it'll be at a different location, a different theme. And I thank you very much for allowing me to work with you and your family and meet your financial goals. Thank you.